Hey, what's going on, guys? I know the list just came out, but we're going to waste no time trying to get a tier list going on for the next format, and this is post Legacy of Destruction. So, trying to just get my thoughts out on where these decks lie and, what kind of meta we could be looking at. And this is kind of the tier list that I would use to kind of prepare for, I guess, YCS Raleigh if I were to go, or any like tournaments coming up in the post Legacy of Destruction format. Okay, so gonna hop on in. I kind of just took all of the decks that were good in the last format, and then I also put in any deck that got a relevant change from the ban list, and then I also threw in the Tenpai Dragons there at the end, because I think that's the only new deck out of Legacy of Destruction. Like, I know there's a lot of new support for existing decks like Yubel and stuff like Centurion and things like that, but yeah, I think Tenpai is the only new deck that I think is worth ranking in this tier list. So we're gonna go ahead and try it out, really just let it rip and see where we land. Okay, so starting off with Branded, I think Branded's in a pretty good spot. Like, if we look at the current format pre-ban list, pre-Legacy Destruction, Branded is actually like up in here, and I don't see it going anywhere. Like, it's still really solid. We can see Nibiru probably going to be a bigger deal next format, because I still think, well, we'll get to what the meta is looking like, but also Baron de Fleur is not going to be an issue anymore. So I think Nib will be more effective. And Branded just doesn't really care about Nib that much. They didn't lose anything on the ban list. We still have Branded Fusion. We still have Sanctifier Puppet. Still have all the tools available, and I think Branded is going to be right up in here. Moving on to Floowandereeze. I think Floowandereeze is going to be down here in the Rogue tier. Just like, it's a shifter deck that's not very consistent, and that's what it's been for the last several formats, and I think it's just going to stay right where it's at in the current meta, and we're just going to keep it there. Exo Sister is even going to be a step below, in my opinion. I think it's a little bit worse than Flu. It gets hurt by hand traps a little bit more, and I still think we might be seeing a hand trap format coming up. So we're going to keep Exo Sister down below. Next one is going to be Fire King, and then we have Snake Eyes as well, the pure Snake Eyes version. Hate to break it to you, but I really still think it's the best deck, or it's at least going to be up in there with other best decks, right? So I think the Fire King one lost less than the Snake Eye version, the pure version, because the pure was kind of dependent on the Jet Synchron play into Borreload Savage, into Baron de Fleur sometimes, but I think that we can have the Fire King version just rocking and rolling, and have that extra deck space freed up. Never really depended on those synchro plays, and I still think it's going to be right up here. And then the pure Snake Eye, I'm not really sure, but I honestly think it still might be up here. Like, just even playing through a pure Snake Eye board without even if they don't put up a negate, it's still very difficult. Like, still with Promethean and possibly Ambler Whale, they'll probably have room in the extra deck for Ambler Whale again, so gonna bring that back for maybe going first plays. It's still like hyper consistent. Still have 3 Ash, Wanted, Diabellestar, Poplar, Bonfires. It's the most consistent deck, and it has very strong end boards. And just because it lost the synchro negates doesn't mean people won't think of something to replace it with, right? So I think we're going to have it up in there, and I still think it's going to be in the best deck category. Moving on down to Kashtira. I do think Kashtira is going to be still very strong. It did lose Baron de Fleur, but it's not really a big hit. So I think it's probably the best of the shifter decks still. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of unaffected by the list, and I think Kashtira is still eternally very strong. Labyrinth. I think Lab might scoot up in here to the YCS tops list. Maybe it will have a little bit easier time competing with the fire decks now that they've lost a little bit of grind, a little bit of resources with the Linkaribo and the Synchro Monsters. But I don't know, every new format we keep seeing the list and we say, oh, Labyrinth is unhit, it's going to be tier 1, and it just never performs. And I don't know. We'll see what happens there, but we're going to chuck Labyrinth up in here, and I think that's a pretty solid spot. Manadium, I think here. Like, yeah, we lost Baron, but Manadium is one of those decks that can make Dispatter very regularly, very easily, right? And we still have the Assault Synchro, Assault Stardust, Assault Synchro Dragon, whatever, you know what I'm saying. We can still make this batter for the negate. Like, Baron's loss is not that big a deal for Manadium, I don't think. It never really went into Borreload Savage that I know of, or did it? I don't know. I think it's mostly like Dispatter, Chaos Angel, and then like Crimson Dragon and Calamity Lock. Plus like the Counter Trap, Astrolaud. It still basically has all of its tools, and I think it could be up in here in regionals tops. Pearly got back a Delicious Memory. I'm hesitant to put it up in YCS tops, kinda. I'm not sure if it's strong enough, even just with one Delicious back. I think it might be kind of like up in here at the top of regionals tops still. I'm not sure it's that strong a deck. It all really kind of depends on what the meta hand traps shape out to be. If people are still on, 3 Imperm, 3 Veiler, and Mourners even, that really hurts Pearly. But if people like pull back on the effect negators, then Pearly has a better chance. But unfortunately, it just gets hit by the same stuff that Snake Eyes gets hit by, and therefore kind of it takes a tumble down the tier list just a bit. Next one is Raid Raptors. I actually really like Raid Raptors. People don't know what they do. They don't know how to side into them still. And I think it's just a matter of time before they just start taking some events, like sneaking up into the top, top tiers, or, top cut is what I meant to say. Top cut of events. Just because people are just unfamiliar with it, right? Rescue Ace. Okay, so Rescue Ace got hit, I think, a little bit harder than Snake Eyes. Like, I think Link Karibo dodging any Imperms or Veilers on the Hydrant is actually a pretty big deal. And I think I'm going to put it right up in here in regionals tops as well. I think it's just like a step below these other decks right now. And I'm trying to think of anything else on the ban list that would really affect Rescue Ace, but I mean, I just think if you're going to play a Fire deck, there's still no reason not to play Fire King. And I don't really see Rescue Ace having very much representation in the first place, and, for decent reason. I think just the Fire King stuff is a little bit better. Runic lost. Let's see, what did Runic lose? Basically just Baron de Fleur. It's still cruising. Not really sure how it is going to play into the Fire decks, but Runic always manages to find some YCS tops. It's just a matter of people figuring out which version to play, but maybe like the best version that I can think of is Bestial Runic, and that lost Baron, and that's actually a huge hit. We could still see Sprite Runic come back, or Live Twin Sprite, or whatever like that. Live Twin Sprite Runic, or Fur Hire Runic. I'm just not really sure. I think it's between regionals tops and YCS tops. There's also the Runic Stun variant, but I don't know how people are gonna feel about that. So I think we can put it up here. It's like the bottom of YCS tops is probably what we're gonna see, just because there's so many options for Runic players. Like whether it's stun or combo, somebody will cook something that will top a YCS, in my opinion. Yubel's fun, but I think once people learn how to beat it, it's going to be a little bit, it's not going to be as good. But to be completely honest, I'm not exactly sure what the new Legacy of Destruction cards bring to the deck. I know that the current version is solid. I know it's already had some regionals tops, but I really want to put it here. I'm just not sure. I know there's been some cool like Yubel plus like Unchained like cooking that's been going on. I think it actually deserves to be up in the YCS tops along with side these, and I think I'm gonna move the Runic deck down here. Sprite is still rogue. I don't know, it hasn't been doing anything. I don't see any reason why the new list would change Sprite's position in the meta, and there's just so many other decks that are better to play than Sprite right now, so we're going to keep it down there. Rika, still not great. It's just another combo deck that is hit by all the hand traps that everyone is already playing for the Fire decks, so it's unfortunate. Rika is just not really seeing much of any representation or any success. Tier, I think Tier is going to scoot on up into regionals tops. I think because Malicious comes back, we're going to have more consistent Beatrice, which means just a little boost for Tier. And honestly, Tier already is like on the cusp of being a very good deck, or like it's already on the cusp of seeing a lot of representation in Top Cut, I think. And I know people are just looking for any reason to play Tearlament because it's actually a fun deck to play. So I think there's going to be a lot of players on this, and I think it will sneak up into the regionals top section. Unchained by itself is still not great. Like, unfortunately, Shavarda 1 just hits so hard, and it's just not good. But there's Unchained splashed into like Yubel, or Unchained splashed into Labyrinth, and that's different. Like, but we're talking about the pure Unchained deck. It's just not very good, and I think we're gonna have to keep it down here. Maybe you can call it Rogue, but I mean, it's whatever. Like, is it worse than Rika? Is it better than Rika? I don't really think so. I think they're about on the same level. Okay, Voiceless Voice. I think this one is gonna scoot up into here. I just think there's just a lot of representation for this deck, and if it goes first, it's very hard to beat. There's not a lot of hand traps that can take care of this, not a lot of board breakers that can take care of this, and just the grind is insane on this deck, and they can play just a ton of non-engine. I don't know. I think we're going to chuck it up here in best decks right now. I do think it's better than Lab or Yubel. I'm pretty sure. Yubel is kind of a question mark for me. I don't know where it really belongs post Legacy Destruction, but I think it's going to be pretty solid. Vanquish Soul, I think, is going to go up in the regionals top section. Big fan of this deck. Obviously, I play it, but I don't know. I think it's going to go down like towards the bottom of the regionals top section. I think it'll sneak in like one top per regional, probably. Like one of the top 16, top 32 is going to be a Vanquish Soul. Not going to see a whole lot of YCS tops with Vanquish Soul right now, just because it's like a little bit too slow and a little bit too difficult to keep up with the fire decks in Voiceless Voice unless you draw Shifter. I don't know. We'll see. Thunder Dragon. Colossus is back. Where does it go? I think it's in the Rogue category. I think Colossus by itself is very good, and I think it's enough to warrant putting it in Rogue. But you have to remember, when Colossus was around last time, we didn't have droplets, we didn't have talents, didn't have thrust, right? So it's going to be a lot easier to clear Colossus than it used to be. And just keep that in mind, that Colossus is not just like a brick wall that it used to be, and it's only at 1. There's no like double Colossus you have to worry about. I think people are going to want to try to play this deck, but I don't really think it's going to have very much success in the top cut. So, we're going to chuck it in the Rogue section for now. Magispector. I think Magispector is probably one of the better decks that has gotten support from the ban list. I think we're going to put it up here kind of near the bottom of regionals tops. I think someone might actually sneak in a regional top if this deck just sees a little bit more representation. But maybe Rogue, maybe top of Rogue. I think Kieran is kind of nice, and I'm be interested to see what that little power boost that Kieran coming back will give to the Magispector deck for the coming format. Orcust. Still not great. The 3 harp versus 1 harp doesn't really matter. Like, you just need the 1, honestly, and just getting the last 2 is going to make your deck a little bit more consistent, but it's just not going to be enough to get the power level up there. I think it's still not great. Heroes got back a Malicious. It's still Rogue. I think Rogue is where it was last format, and I think Rogue is still where it's going to be. Like, Darklaw is still a good card, so I guess that at the very least is going to put it in Rogue status. Sword Soul with Protoss. Okay, so we got Protoss back, lost Barone. Is that a big deal? Not sure, but I think people are going to scramble to play this deck too. People love this deck, and it's going to see representation, but is it going to see top cut results? It might. I think we might put it up in regionals tops as well, but I think kind of towards the bottom. I think right around here. If I'm actually arranging this in the order I think it should be, I think we're gonna scoot Raid Raptor down below Kashtira, maybe even Kashtira above Rescue Ace. Something like this is probably my best bet at the regionals tops actual order. Okay, Striker. Rogue or still not great, but the third engage is nice, but I think it's gonna help side engines that are playing Engage and Drones and Kagari and not actually help the actual striker deck. I'm not sure the striker deck is good enough right now. And just like with how easy it is to OTK these days with, you know, the Zealantis OTK, I think striker just kind of gets cooked by Fire King a lot of times. So yeah, I don't think it's fast enough to really compete with the kind of speed that the rest of the meta is coming out with. And I think especially against Voiceless Voice, which is like non-targeting protection, it's going to be kind of tough. So I think we're going to put it down here and still not great, but we might scoot it up towards the top, give it a little hope. Chimera. So Chimera is getting the Apprentice Illusion card, whichever one, the level 6. It's a bit more consistency. I think it could be kind of good. And I think we can put it up in regionals tops as well. I think here is a good spot for it. I definitely see, you know, Chimera topping a few regionals with the new cards. You know, power level is basically the same as where it's been for the last couple formats, the last couple like sets that have come out, but I still think it's pretty solid. Centurion is going to go right kind of next to it. Yeah, we're getting some new cards. Centurion with, you know, the Horus stuff is pretty good. They never really relied on Barone or Borreload Savage, so I think that Centurion is in a good spot to actually try to push itself up into the significant YCS tops section, but I don't think it's as good as these kind of decks that have consistently shown up like Branded and Labyrinth, and then Yubel I think is just getting a little bit better support than Centurion and Chimera, so I think Yubel is deservedly up in the YCS tops list. Bestial stuff, Dragon Link. I think YCS tops. I think Bestials are very strong, and especially if Voiceless becomes like one of the most played decks, Bestials coming back in is going to crush that deck. However, Bestials does actually take a bit of a hit by pure Snake Eyes taking or coming down a little bit, and because of that, actually now that I'm reconsidering putting Snake Eyes in the best decks, I think I might put it down here. I think Fire King is just better now because we don't have the synchro plays. I don't think I can reasonably put Snake Eye right next to it. But yeah, because Snake Eye is not around, we're not hitting any darks with the Magnum or with the Bestials, right? We're not hitting the, well, I guess we are still hitting Flambridge putting back SP or IP into the spell trap zone. So that's pretty good. That's still pretty good. We're just not hitting Link Karibo. I guess that's the only thing, and or Borreload Savage targeting a Link. So okay, yeah, I think Bestials, I think right here is probably pretty good. All right, Tenpai Dragons. Let's talk about the last one. This is like a deck that a lot of people are kind of scared of. Like nobody likes to have 30,000 damage dropped on them on any given battle phase. And I think at the start of the format, it will be up here. But I think people will start to learn how to play against the deck, and I think it will just kind of move down to regionals tops. I think it's going to go here. I think it's going to be a different story after the next set, Info, whatever that is, Infinite Forbidden, where Tenpai Dragon actually gets some really good cards, and I think at that point, it's going to move up to here or maybe here. But for now, post-Legacy Destruction only, I don't think it's going to be good enough. It's not as good as it is in OCG right now. Just because it doesn't have as many turn skips like Max C, and you know the consistency can pretty easily get hit. So I think we're gonna put Tenpai Dragons down here in the regional tops, kind of near the top. Like I respect the deck, I really do, but I don't think it's in the YCS top section just yet. So yeah, this is gonna wrap up the tier list for me. My initial thoughts post ban list, post Legacy Destruction. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Leave a like, sub to the channel. We'll catch you in the next one.